Who want a ticket straight to them pearly gates?
About a day ago, IGN did an interview with Michael Murray, Nakatsu, and Harada, and was just talking about Tekken 8 and the Clive reveal. The whole thing is really not really watchable because the information is pretty old. It was something that was done immediately after the Game Awards, and it was released after the character was released. So a lot of the information is things that we already know and experience. But there was one part of it that was very interesting. The Tekken developers were talking about the possibilities of doing another Final Fantasy character in the future. Now, you know that the Tifa mains were really upset, and it's interesting to see the developers even float this idea around, period. So you have this clip from High Buff Gigas that I'll play in a second, but you also have these 4 screenshots where the Final Fantasy developers are saying that they would like them for Clive to be a reappearing character in Tekken's going forward. So it says, I would be grateful if he could continue appearing in future numbered titles. Talking about Clive, wanting him to, appear in Tekken 9, 10, 11, whatever, right? Me personally, I don't want that, but I do think it would be interesting if Clive showed up in like a Tag 3. The tag games are known for being very crazy and bizarre, but if he was to show up again, that would be the place to do it in my opinion. So please, if you would be so kind, the Tekken developer Nakatsu says, if you will allow it, we can certainly consider making him a regular character. And then the guy says, then I'll do my best to keep hounding you to do so. Now, obviously, this doesn't seem like anything too concrete. This is just the developers talking about a character they're both very passionate about. But when you talk about what is said in this next video, it's just very interesting. So Hype of Gigas titles this tweet, interviewer asking if there will be another Final Fantasy character in Tekken.
You mentioned that he has the gameplay from Final Fantasy 16 is a bit more action oriented, which is why he fit in with Tekken. But was there ever considerations of some other Final Fantasy characters, Cloud?
You can see that he really wants to say Tifa, but he didn't. Bro wanted to be like Tifa. The idea of more Final Fantasy characters showing up, me personally, I'm not really interested in the idea. I think they should just do one character from one franchise and then move on. I do like how they did one Final Fantasy in Tekken 7 and Tekken 8. I do think that's kind of interesting to where it's a new game and then you could try it again. But see, we don't know how successful Noctis was. It looks like he was very successful if you just think about his impact on the tournament scene and also his usage at the start. Clive being this early on, a lot of people loving the character. We'll see how that grows. So this is Harada speaking, and then Michael Murray will translate.
Harada just mentioned that it's not like we only have we're limited to one character from Final Fantasy. Might be cool if we had 2. Who knows? But it's not something we can decide alone.
And we know this to be true, right? There was many ideas that Harada wanted to do in the past. You could talk about a Waffle House stage. He said he would submit that idea to the people who's in charge of Waffle House, and it's up to them to, say, yes, we'll do it. Now, we have no clue if they said yes or not. We only could assume they said no because it's been months and we haven't heard back. But that's one example, right? There's also this idea for the character Tifa that the developers of Final Fantasy are super protective of the character, and they do not want to allow any other developers to use their character. And it kind of makes sense, right? Tifa is their cash cow. I have been learning a lot about Final Fantasy, and I didn't understand that each Final Fantasy has its own set of characters, which is why I always hear people specify Noctis comes from this Final Fantasy, Clive comes from this one, Tifa comes from that one, right? I didn't understand that, but now I do, right? So the fact that Tifa comes specifically from Final Fantasy VII, the developers of that game, the only way they could tap back into that Tifa, landmine, that gold mine, is by doing rebirths, remakes, and things of that nature. If they allowed the character to exist in other different properties as guest characters or as skins and stuff like that, it would greatly diminish their chances to make a fortune off their most successful character. I don't know if that makes sense or if you guys get what I'm saying, but I think this news article also kind of tackles that idea of how the Final Fantasy devs view the character. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth director asks PC players to avoid offensive or inappropriate mods of it, right? And this mod is breast physics. Holy smokes. And this is a tamed one. There's far crazier mods out there for the character Tifa, and you would have to imagine what would have happened if she hit Tekken 8. Tekken 8 has a lot of great mods. I make videos from time to time talking about all the good stuff out there, but when you look up mods, it gets crazy really, really fast. And I do think that is probably something that the developers took into consideration when selecting which character to do. Because if you look at the character Clive, there's certain customization elements that he can't use, right? Hair customization, stuff like that. Noctis couldn't use any of the customizations back in Tekken 7. And the developers, when working on Tekken 8 and talking with the Clive developers, that's something that they were all like really discussing, is how this was something that they were hesitant on allowing Clive to be altered in these ways, but they just said, hey, you know, let's just do it, let's just embrace it. I feel like the players will love it, and that's the goal, is to get these guys to, you know, love the character and appreciate the character. But with a character like Tifa, I just think that was way too high.